This documentary was filmed and produced on the traditional unceded territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.
I really liked Steve the moment I met him. I thought he was, you know, a real vibrant, special guy. I still do.
He was a highly excitable young man. Uh, I would say almost frantic, like.
So I was pretty much convinced the character Spicoli, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, was based on Steve Kaplan.
It's his drive to entertain the world.
I was just impressed that he kept at it for so many years.
The kid in the candy store of magic, imagination, creation, and anything you can imagine bringing us together and entertaining us.
My parents separated when I was 4 years old, and I was really too young, obviously at the age of 4, to understand what the impact of that actually meant. What it meant to me and my impression at such a young age was that, oh, I got to have 2 houses to live at. I'd see my father every weekend, you know, so it was good. I got to be with my father every single weekend, and I grew up with my mom and my 2 older sisters. I was the baby. I was on a summer outing with a day camp, YMCA day camp, I believe it was, and I remember being there, and I remember, from what I remember of it, there was another young kid that and I were hanging out, and he was telling me that up in the bluffs there was an area where there was a slide, like a natural slide that took you from way up there all the way down to the beach, like literally all the way down to the beach. So we hiked our way up there, and we came to an area where you could see that there was an edge, and an edge that looked like it was going on an incline. And I thought, oh, there it is. I said, here, let me try. And that's the last thing I remember. And apparently, it did go like slanted for a while, and then went straight down. I was, when I fell off the cliff, I was 8 years old, and it was a 150-foot cliff, true story. What's really funny is I also have come to realize it's a bit of a foreshadowing of my career I mean, if you think about it, if an 8-year-old kid survived falling off a 150-foot cliff today, not only would it go viral on social media and go around the world, it would have been something that would have potentially been a media story worthy of spreading around the world. It did get a newspaper coverage. I got actually 2 articles that covered it that we still have to this day. And the first one, talks about that. The second one also had me apparently share that experience, because not only was I rescued that day, but another guy whose boat broke down somewhere needed to be rescued with it. I thought my story was definitely far more dramatic, but apparently they wanted to share that story and the guy whose boat broke down. 150-foot cliff fall, a boat breaking down. My father introduced me to magic, but not only did he introduce me to magic, he introduced me to the love of live entertainment. Definitely live, because when I grew up, my father worked the lighting, because my father was an electrician, and did the lighting at our local community center here, the Jewish Community Center, and did the lighting for all the productions that went on there. And as a young boy, I used to be there backstage with him on a lot of these theatrical productions, and I fell in love with the energy. I fell in love with the feeling you could just feel from all the performers. They're going on, them coming off, and there was just an excitement, and I got such a rush of it. You know, Dad let me just sit there. I'm sitting down, and he's running the lighting and stuff like that, and I loved it. And at the same place, they had annual events going on at the Jewish Community Center, and often there would be a magician performing. And of course, my dad would be doing the lighting for it, and I would be always getting right in the front row watching the magician. And every now and then, the magician would actually call me up on stage to help with it, and I loved it. I shook with excitement to go up on stage and be there to help the magician. So he knew I already liked magic, or really liked magic. But admittedly, I didn't ever think about myself as becoming a magician. It just wasn't something I thought, I didn't know. And when I was 12 years old, at that same center, they offered a magic course, and my dad just signed me up for it. I remember learning my very first trick, and it was, or the teacher, a guy named Stu Lang, whose stage name was Sudini. His very first trick he taught us was a trick called the dime through the table. I'm going to need to focus the energy on that dime to make it split up and fall through the table. So what I use is a simple salt shaker. Based on the way that it's physically built, it helps focus all that energy into the dime to, in fact, make that area of that table right there, as well as that area of the dime, split apart so the dime can fall through, form back together, and land to the floor. The only thing is that when I hit it to make the energy release, the energy is so blinding, I need to mask the energy just so that nobody's eyes would get hurt, simply because I can't afford a lawsuit. So I would use make up a kind of an impromptu shield using some napkins on the table. And that's all it was this was it. He had set up for us this illusion with a great with a great setup where he would show that the dime is still on the table. He would put this on top of it, and he would say, now watch very carefully, watch around here, make sure no dime shoots out or goes anywhere when I make the magic happen. So I had everybody around us focusing in on the salt shaker, getting ready to do it, and he went 3, 2, 1, and like that, and everybody just was dead silent. He lifted up the napkin, the dime was still there, but the salt shaker was gone. The salt shaker, as it went, had penetrated right through the table. And this was the trick that really, it was really exciting because he showed it, wowed me, then explained it, which again, okay, that's really cool, but it wasn't just teaching us how to do a trick. It was teaching us the importance of the presentation of a trick. And as it turns out, somebody who's also had been a big part of my career and still is, Mark Laren Young, he also was in that actual class. Him and I did the same class together.
One of my memories was that the teacher didn't actually have much game, and the person I remember doing the most fun magic in that class was not our teacher, it was Steve. Because he was already charming, he was always putting on a show, and he was the one who came off most like a performer in that class. And yes, I very much am including the teacher in there.
Oh, I thought it was great for him. And, anything to never, looked at the magic, and I'm thinking, I don't want to know that. I just watch it. There's only one trick he showed me. I don't remember which one. That I said, you've got to show that one to me. And that was it.
I was probably 11 or 12 years old, maybe 13 years old, playing floor hockey at the Jewish Community Center, where I ran into Steve the first time. I think everyone was playing floor hockey, and he was in a room down the hallway doing magic.
And Steve Kaplan was always, interestingly enough, when I think of him today, I don't see any difference between high school and today, because he's never changed.
We would go to the Jewish Community Center and he would do magic, and I would hang out there all day and enjoy myself with him and his friends.
As far as I can remember, I've always associated Stephen with magic. He would often do magic shows. show me a trick here and there, or do several in front of a few people. And I never knew any magician at the time, just what I saw on TV. And I was always very intrigued, and I enjoyed his performances, and I enjoyed trying to figure out how it was done. I rarely did, but I definitely enjoyed the intrigue.
And you also have that magic inside that wants to see everybody smiling, laughing, and in awe of something extraordinary, so that he can let them believe that magic does exist, because he knows that that's the true essence of what the good light has provided Stephen with as a central sun of light, love, peace, harmony, and magic itself.
Black Metal Fantasy was a stage production that I wrote in my graduation year, my grade 12 graduation year. I had accumulated over the last few years in high school a number of tricks. I had done a few magic shows, and admittedly, again, I wasn't disciplined enough to really pursue magic the way I should have, and that was my own flaw. Those were my flaws. I like to blame it on the fact that I'm a Gemini and the Mercury mind and stuff for those who believe in the astrology, and I kind of do. But I definitely had a less than focused mind in the pursuit of my career.
I remember it was, again, a big undertaking for a young person, a young crew, and I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it wasn't polished, definitely wasn't polished, but now I understand that it needed a lot more support than it got. But I thought kudos for putting it on and promoting it.
Now, my first memories of the Black Metal Fantasy, and I cannot stress how life-changing this was for me. I was cutting through the Jewish Community Center to get home. I heard these familiar voices in the auditorium, and they were basically doing like these magic incantations or something. And I stood outside the auditorium watching a rehearsal for the Black Metal Fantasy in awe, going, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I wish I could play. And I'm watching, and they take a break, and I will never forget kind of what happened next. And Steve was there, and Scott were there, and Steve's looking at me and went, you used to do magic, right, Mark? And I went, yeah. And then he's looking at me and going, you're tall. I'm like, sure? And Scott goes, and you can act, right? And next thing I know, I am being offered the role of a Doma in the Black Metal Fantasy. And my life has literally never been the same.
And what Black Metal Fantasy was going to be was a story of a battle between two sorcerers. A good sorcerer, Orion, that was me, and Santar, the leader of the Dark Realm, the evil sorcerer who was played by a local actor and celebrity named Scott, who has gone on to have a great career in movies, television, and huge career in voiceover work, an absolute huge career in voiceover work.
There's nothing disingenuous or scammy about Steve. He just is Steve. But when he was doing magic, when he was making the show happen, there was a level of focus and seriousness and intent. Even when we were doing the Black Metal Fantasy in high school, even when I was pretty sure the entire intent of the Black Metal Fantasy was so that he could make out with Jackie Norlander.
Plans was to relaunch the show, because the first show, nothing really came out of it. We had a great audience, got great, everybody really enjoyed it, but this is 1979. Like nobody, there was no major media coverage of it. There was nobody there, even though we invited media to cover it and everything. We didn't get anything. Nothing came of it. So the idea then was to do another production. And this is when, Mark and I agree that when this curse came upon us.
The Black Metal Fantasy, in a lot of ways, was the perfect introduction to showbiz because we met somebody very early on whose name I probably am not supposed to say because all of the lawyers at this production would not approve. But we had somebody who promised to bankroll creating a bigger and better show and discovered that basically the promise of money was smoke and mirrors.
And we wanted to do it, but we knew we needed more. We needed to make this production a little bit better, so we needed to get some capital, you know, some money into the production to help us make some props, do some cool things with it. And he said, you know what, let's do this. I have like $2,500 in my bank account, and I'm willing to give it to this production so we can get the props and stuff. And we got all excited. He said, get everybody together. We got the whole cast together and tell them. And I told everybody, okay, we're going to do it again, and this time we're going to have some money to do it all, and we're going to have a great production. We're going to put on something on. So we started doing the rehearsals, and then we needed to start getting the props built. And so we went to him, and I said, hey, buddy, we need to get some money, stuff. Can you give us a couple $100 so we can get some wood and we can get some materials, some for the backdrops and everything? And he just kind of like, he says, I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry, I quit, and then walked away. To Mark and I, this was a curse that kind of haunted us for years after, and we literally named it after this person. And this is, again, where the magic principle really came into play throughout my career.
And this led to, the showbiz reality of we just kept running into various things in both our lives where we would get this close to the big money and then it would vanish. What I remember about how Steve handled the lack of success was a mix. Because on the one hand, there were moments when he got understandably super depressed. But on the other hand, he was like, so when are we doing the next one? And how are we getting on stage again? And it is, to my mind, such an important part of Steve's story that after doing the Black Metal Fantasy, The Initiation, because in a lot of ways, the Black Metal Fantasy, the original Black Metal Fantasy, was a success.
I started working for the federal government at the age of 19, I think about a year after high school, a year or so after I graduated from high school. There I got the job at the government, and it was a good job. Great people that I got to work with there.
Well, when I first met Steve, I thought he was about 12 years old. I don't know how he got into government. And he was a highly excitable young man. I would say almost frantic. Like I felt I had to calm him down sometimes at work.
It took a while to get used to Steve because he was quite different than anybody else who worked there.
Well, he was always vivid. He was off the wall vivid, I would say. He was, his personality is extremely outgoing. He was extremely outgoing then. Even though he was young and shy, he was still a very energetic, high energy person that you couldn't take your eyes off him when he was bouncing around the room like a 6-year-old. So.
He was entertaining. He would do magic tricks, way of just the way about him. He was just full of fun. And it took a while to get used to having somebody like that around.
Oh, yeah. Every day was, frantic, right? It was, he did his work and stuff like that, but that was not of interest to him. It was to just be there. He loved being around people. He was full of energy and always lots of fun.
I don't know if Steve ever knew about this story or not. There was a time I remember before I became a shift supervisor. No, I couldn't have been before. Yes, it was before I became a shift supervisor. A few of us were sitting in a restaurant or a pub with the shift supervisor at the time, Maxine Edwards. And there was a move afoot to get rid of Steve. And so we took a vote, and Steve won by a fairly narrow margin, I think. But yeah, he survived. I don't know if he ever knew that or not. I voted to keep him, okay? I might have been the deciding vote for all I know.
Yeah, I mean, there was probably a few people who found him loud and off the wall, but I would say in general, yes, he was well liked. He was he had a very genuine approach, you know, and I think people responded to that quite well. So, well, one thing that is kind of odd, I suppose, that when he first came to work with us, I guess he was pretty young. I don't know his exact age, but for the first while, his mother, I believe her name was Ruth, if I remember correctly, used to phone me every day to see that he wasn't acting up and that he was doing his job and he was a good little boy. So I kind of felt like an uncle that had to watch over him.
I guess it was in 1981 or 82 that Mark and I got together at some point, because after the black metal fantasy had failed, I kind of gave up on that, thinking, okay, that's not going to happen. We got to figure a way, or I kind of let it go. I thought that's it. It's a dead dream for that one. But I got together with Mark, I remember about a year or two after that, and we inspired each other. We just started talking about it. We got excited, again, as my memory recalls. And I do not have the best of memories, but I do remember that I had given up on it, but the initiation sparked the interest again, got the excitement up again.
So the initiation was supposed to be epic. It was supposed to be Star Wars on stage, and instead it was more like Jar Jar Binks on ice. And one of the things that's really easy to forget, not just for Steve, but for me, the number of people who told us we were doing something amazing. So we may have been delusional, but wow, there were a lot of people in on that delusion. And a lot of people encouraging it and telling us, no, you're doing something amazing here.
Well, let me tell you. The black metal fantasy was supposed to be a two-part thing. First part, preparation of the Sorcerer's Battle. Second part, the Battle of the Sorcerers. We did the black metal fantasy preparation of the Sorcerer's Battle 3 times. Didn't lead to any major successes. So 2 years after that, Mark and I decided to turn it into a trilogy. And he wrote a script called The Initiation, which was going to be part 2 of 3 parts.
I remember how it came about as a trilogy, and I bear the full weight of that particular shame. I was studying literary epics in English Lit 12 at the time, and Star Wars had come out, and George Lucas had just said, well, the reason it's episode whatever, or episode 5, is because it's part of a trilogy. So, and I had just learned that all great works were supposed to be part of a trilogy, and we wanted to do something great.
And I wasn't even in it. I was not even in it. I was just, I think I did a voiceover, or I was the narrator. I think I came out and I introduced the show, told a couple parts of it, and then I was not in it. And the other part of it was there really was no magic in it. We only had 1 or 2 props, including this giant prop of Satan kind of a thing, with a cow's skull as the head and lights around it and stuff.
So the initiation did not feature Steve Kaplan. we had to create a character to get him on stage. He had to become the narrator because Orion, his character, had no part in that story. In terms of writing, wow, that's the dumbest thing I've ever done.
Did I think Initiation was going to be a flop? I didn't think that it would be a flop, but I admit I didn't have the most confidence in it. I realized that we just did a whole production called, The Initiation. It was supposed to be a magical musical thing that really had no magic in it. It was a totally rock and roll fantasy thing, because I always thought of myself as a rock and roll magician. I hair down to my waist, and I always incorporated music into my magic at the time as well. We actually got a write-up in the newspaper, and I remember the day the article came out, and it literally said, the headline screamed, "Rock fantasy turns into a flop." And they literally, I remember there's something in it saying that it's like a high school production moved downtown. So we ran it for 4 days, because that's what we had booked the theater for. And the first night, I think, was our largest audience of maybe 50 or 60 people. Second night, 10. And I think that was, the last couple of nights around the same number. But somehow I just kept going. I didn't let, they crushed me. I fell down pretty hard. I have the kind of personality that that takes disappointment, takes letdowns, hit me a lot harder emotionally, which, as I'm sure anybody with a creative endeavors do, and I know that the world is filled with creative people who have chased their dreams and pursued their dreams and encountered exactly what I've encountered. Encountered the feeling of this, maybe I'm kidding myself, maybe these dreams of mine aren't real, but somehow I knew that's all I wanted. It's all I wanted, and that's what just kept driving me forward. Okay, this didn't work. I gotta find something else or another way to maybe make this happen. Maybe I can do it this way. Maybe I can do it that way.
Well, in my understanding, he knew that when he followed his heart, it always felt right. So when things didn't feel right, he would just have to go back to following his heart again after what you would call that moment in time.
I guess I was working full time. I was also working a job that changed shifts every 2 weeks. I'd be on day shift, 2 weeks later I'd be on night shift, and 2 weeks after that I'd be on midnight shift. Because of the job, it was a 24-hour operation. And that was definitely takes its toll. Anybody who's ever done shift work knows that, every time you shift, your whole sleeping schedule and everything goes off. So I had no energy. I had no real drive to do anything, and I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no idea. Until 1984, which would be a couple of years after the initiation, I think Mark was the one who found this as well, that the P&E was doing what like a showcase talent. A talent showcase. It was called the P&E Performer Showcase. And like in America's Got Talent or something like that, where they audition acts, all kinds of acts, all from all around BC. And the auditions usually took place in nightclubs or pubs or whatever, which is what we did. We went to this audition, and everybody had a 3-minute act. Almost the same thing as today's current talent contests. And our act involved two of my biggest tricks at the time. One that I still do to this day involved the newspaper tear, where I would shred a newspaper and it would, be restored.
The front 2 pages and the front page with the video. Remember video. What I'm about to do for you is an illusion of sound, not of sight, because you're about to think you see a newspaper being torn. When in fact I am not tearing this newspaper at all, it only looks like I'm tearing it. There's a sound of a tape recorder going off right now that is playing the recording of tape to cord newspaper. And if you watch very carefully, you will see that I am actually just folding this. Actually, how many people here think I am holding shredded newspaper in my hand? Let's hear it with a round of applause. How many people think there's shredded newspaper in my hand? Come on, let's see. How many people think I'm holding a completely full newspaper? Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. Thank you very much. Somebody who believes. Well, I'd like you to know that the person who clapped last was correct. When in fact, the newspaper that was once torn is now completely back
And ultimately, the second part of it was I get suddenly grabbed on stage, put into handcuffs, put into a big trunk inside of a sack, the sack put on top of me, it gets all locked up, chains, padlocks and everything. My assistant would get up on top of the trunk, and she had the curtain that goes around, and ta-da, it goes up, and then suddenly, boom, it's down, and she's gone, and I'm standing there. I jump off, they unlock the trunk and open it up, and ta-da, there she is inside the sack with the handcuffs on.
So we've got 3 minutes on stage. How much magic can we do in 3 minutes? And what are the coolest things that you are capable of doing in 3 minutes? And Steve's going, well, I got these fire shooters. Great, we'll do that. We got the sub trunk. Great, we'll do that. I can't remember all the things that we put in there. Those are the two things that really stand up. Newspaper. You know, the newspaper tear, which again is a classic trick and one of the few things that translates well to a big house because newspapers were big. And so in 3 minutes, Steve did what for a typical magic show would have been 15 to 20 minutes worth of magic. So if you saw that act today, if you saw the entire act in its entirety, you'd go, yeah, that's just what they do in Vegas now. That's what they do, that's what Cirque du Soleil does. He was, I don't know how many years ahead of the curve, but a good decade ahead of the curve. So the reason Steve's act killed at the P&E Performer Showcase was he was working at a speed no one was doing magic at in the early 80s. No one.
And I was proud of it. But even my friend Randy, the magician, who I love him dearly, but he was practical, and he had literally said to me, no magician has ever won the P&E Performer Showcase before.
I don't recall exactly when that was, but I'm going to just guess that it was a few years into knowing him, our relationship, and I know that Steve has a tendency to get very excited about things and super optimistic, which I think is just wonderful and has worked for him. No magician has ever won, and I probably said that just to not get his hopes up. Having thought about that, and now decades later, I probably wouldn't have even said anything. And it was actually an amazing performance. It was brilliant.
And Steve watched more shows than I did, and I was not aware of any of the magicians who were doing their stuff on TV, working at that pace and speed. So that's why that show was so wow. And that show was transformative in Steve's life and transformative in my life.
So at the end, after all the performers had done their shtick, all 20 of us were lined up on the stage. And I was very confident that we were going to get at least third or second place. Didn't for a second imagine first place, but I was very confident we'd at least come in the top three. And they called the third place. And it wasn't us. And I go, oh, okay, we got one more chance. And, you know, this is going to be it. This will be it. They called second place. And again, it wasn't me. And I literally, I felt it sink inside of me. I felt that drop in my stomach. And I remember looking over to Mark saying, okay, I guess we didn't win. And then they announced first place. And sure enough, they chose me and, or chose us basically. And we came out and were awarded this beautiful trophy, which after 40 years is not much left of what it was back in 1984. But this was the trophy we won at first place.
I was a little concerned that he may have already, you know, in his mind won, which actually wasn't a valid concern because that's probably was a good thing and it worked for him because he did win, and I was very happy for him that he won.
But Stephen won, and I was so proud when he won. And I think I realized too that how good he was because I'd seen the act several times, but for somebody not seeing it before, it was very polished. It was ready to be performed.
To me, I looked at that show and I felt like telling everybody who'd watched the initiation, see, we can do it. Yeah, he really is that good. Because magicians were not supposed to win that talent competition.
I was in stunned shock. There was, you know, I would have about as much expectation of winning that as I would of the lottery. And when we won, and it wasn't me winning, it was my team. They worked beautifully with me to make a very successful and of course, award-winning trophy, award-winning prize at the P&E Performer Showcase 1984. And of course, that was the next. This is the greatest thing. I am about to become the world's greatest magician. The door has just opened wide, and watch me become Baboon. Didn't really turn out that way.
Enthusiastic, can you guys play cards? Come on, you play cards? Come on up here. Yeah, come on up here. Yeah, let's go. Come on up here. Yeah. Come on up.
The only thing that came out of that was I got to do a 4-city tour in BC. I did a small little tour going from nightclub to nightclub, which nothing, as we mentioned before, the audiences enjoyed it, but they were not anything that changed my career, that turned anything around in my career, that made anything happen.
That basically the same way birds gotta fly and sharks gotta swim, Steve's gotta magic, right? Steve's gotta perform. And even when he goes into like his deepest funks, there's a point he's going to come out of that funk and go, I have to get on a stage. And that need to get on a stage, I think, is a big part of what has kept him going all of these years and reinventing himself all of these years.
Stephen Kaplan understood the game early on. As long as he could invite as many people as he could to have fun, at the end of the day, he was successful. And so, in school, on the street, in the neighborhoods, in the events, he's been successful every single day, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, ever since Stephen Kaplan decided that his promise and purpose was to make people happy.
I took a leave of absence for 6 months to pursue my career. I got to work on a cruise ship at that time, and that was a great experience. It wasn't what I really wanted to do, but I had a lot of fun. I did two, actually. I did one to Alaska, and then I did another cruise to Tahiti. And I would also say that through the 80s, when I was, again, with the government, because I was complacent in my job, it dampened my desire for the success. I had an income. I had such a lack of energy because of doing these continuous rotating shifts that I didn't give it my all. I did not give it my all, and it was ultimately why I left the government.
You know, we had talked about it off and on for many times that he, you know, this was not his career choice to work filing paper away for the government. So that he eventually would. Yeah, I wasn't surprised, and I think if I remember back, I was all quite gung-ho about him doing it, that it wasn't a mistake to leave the government or anything. So
I don't think it surprised me because I knew that he was serious about what he was trying to do. I'd say I was more impressed that he had kept at it, because he alluded earlier to there being lots of downs to go along with a few of the ups that he's had. I was just impressed that he kept at it for so many years, and he appears to have had some success. So I was happy to see that.
I left the government in 1989 because, even at that time, I thought I was getting, I was getting too old to really go after my dream, to pursue my dream. And I did know, I was recognizing that it was at least really hampering my ability to go after the dream, to go after the career of being the next greatest magician. So with the blessing of my mother, and even though I was 28, 29 years old, with her blessing, I quit the job. I had enough built up in, I guess it was called superannuation or stuff, that I knew I could survive for at least 5 or 6 months without an income before I had to, really get things going. But I did it. I had to go after my career, because if I didn't, I would have been there forever, and I didn't want that. I needed to escape. But I just still didn't get what I thought could happen, and I kept telling myself, unless I literally am able to apply myself full-time every day to the magic career, I'm never going to make myself into what I wanted myself to be, as the next world's greatest magician. I could have been Chris Angel, but yeah, so that's what finally pushed me out of that secure job into the world of the unknown.